The language of deceit. Notes and extracts. On the case for the abolition of tests. Reasoned argumentation. So why do we have so many tests? Or perhaps a more important fundamental question would be, are these tests of any use at all? Tests are, of course, a complex, taken for granted issue that affect almost everyone. And so, for that reason alone, there is a simple need to at least probe the logic involved in their almost universal application. From the perspective of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, to what happens if I do or don't remember the answer to a question 5 minutes after the exam. There is a lot to consider that often passes by unconsidered. A. Tests are all about the past. They are no measure of future success or ability. They focus on a retroactive skill that requires the recall of recent information for a limited period of time only. Besides this, who really knows what skills you will need tomorrow? You may, in effect, prepare and plan for your test in advance. But what next? Correspondingly, the high volume of tests negates any need to consider the future, and it's not as if students have a measure in saying which tests could be done and when. Where is the student's ability to choose on what they would like to be tested? After all, they, alongside their parents, are the consumer of the education product. And, as has been repeated by thousands of test takers through the ages, all too often it's just a test of memory and not a practical application of real data or real life skills. We can only marvel at the complete ridiculousness of being constantly told what to learn without any real deep instruction or study as to how to do this. B. Stress. At certain times, your whole future depends on a percentage written at the top of a page by somebody you barely know. If this does not have any negative side effect on the mind, then I don't know what does. If adults were put through such a rigorous testing process, surely they would at least complain. So why is it deemed acceptable to do this with our children? Dare we mention the I had to, so you have to attitude, too often expressed by parents? With such a strong focus on academic success, which is solely graded in assessment results, can we be surprised that students search for more creative ways to obtain good results? Essentially, regular tests, where it is obvious that more emphasis is placed on the end result than the actual process, encourage cheating by both pupils and teachers. And after all, a piece of paper is very important for your future success. And we all want to do our very best. Right? C. School itself should not be a science laboratory. The techniques of Ivan P. Pavlov and John B. Watson, interlaced through a curriculum planned by B.F. Skinner, might be, in some rare cases, justifiable for crude and cruel experiments on animals. But we really need to set higher values on our children. Science in our communities is now laced with the fervour of religious fanaticism. It has always had a close relationship with means and averages. But is this a suitable way to approach the development of young minds, which, when regularly left to themselves, prove to be highly diverse and flexible, with ample innate ability to solve problems? Students, like animals, are being sorted or even farmed into horizontal groups of knowledge where nobody can help anybody because they are all at the same level. And as a result, they will progress at the pace of only the slowest in the group. Real learning is, of course, a vertical process. D. Tests have no relationship with the real world. There is a rather large disconnect between the conceptual application of tests in a controlled learning environment and communication and survival in the real world. When the average student graduates, does he or she really feel that school examinations have prepared them for the careful navigation of the labyrinth of social, societal, legal, and financial rules that dominate our everyday decision-making processes? How prepared are they to negotiate the fine print of business contracts, mortgage legalese, or interminable changes to accounting, regulation, or the laws of the land? Random historical factoids do little to help us with the important choices in life, such as who to marry, which company to use, how to rebuild the garden fence, rewire our home electricity circuits, or fix an overflowing toilet. We do not ask the local librarian for her results in school, nor the mechanic at the local garage whether or not he passed his final school exams. Furthermore, who really cares? E. It simply takes up too much time. Between the in-school preparation for both educator and student, the in-class delivery, and the marking and the follow-up reviews, which too often tend to consist only of a glance at the result, followed by a brief emotional response, we could be forgiven for thinking that tests were the be-all and end-all of life. The whole year seems generally focused and planned around the testing process. Just think of the time lost to the management as well as to the managed that could have been much better spent in the observation of something new. Let's not forget the homework that eats into any free time a young person might have. In addition, there is also the fact that way down deep inside, we know we will only be required to hold on to this data for a limited short-term period of time. And so, in the many students with whom I have discussed this issue, the brain appears to psychologically dump all the data right after the exam. Just try testing a student on the data at a different time in a different place if you want to prove this. Few students can remember after summer what happened before summer. Then there is also the artificial concept that school is the only place where we are allowed to learn. And that has knock-on effects as well. F. All true learning comes from inside the individual. Either from the outside looking in, or the inside looking out. It is hard to be objective about the learning process. Science, that great bastion of infinite redefinition, would, at the drop of a hat, have us believing that we have come to a great understanding of the world around us. Yet it seems to constantly rewrite the book of knowledge, adding and removing where it sees fit, or where is politically appropriate. The plain truth is that the more we study the world around us, the deeper the rabbit hole appears to be, and the less we are prepared to admit our own shortfalls. This, of course, is just a simplification of the unquestionable reality that no matter how much we learn, we are left with the inevitable conclusion that all we know is that we don't know. Perhaps we should apply this concept to the idea of tests, which are of course an external application and review over an internal process. And that, if we are to be truly honest, is no measure of any real value. The language of deceit. Notes and extracts.